Hello and welcome back, everyone. It is just another day in the life as a military wife. And this last Monday, August 26th, was the third anniversary of the deaths of 13 service members killed by a suicide bomber as they guarded the Abbey Gate of the Kabul airport during the chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan. And as a result, I was looking at the memorial services and different things and came across several resources I had never previously seen, including primary government documents that showed startling information. I didn't know if it was widely known. I dug into it more, and I want to share what I found out with you today, including how many Americans were actually left behind. As always, I'm your host, Sam Wolf, and you're listening to Life of a Military Wife. First, I want to start off this episode recognizing the families of U.S. service members who lost their lives through the entire duration of the Afghanistan campaign, from the beginning all the way up until the 13 at Abbey Gate, and just recognize their sacrifice and their loss, because we lost quite a few. Now, digging into what I found, again, like I said, I started researching this because of the anniversary and found things I didn't expect to find. So we're going to go back to the beginning. We're going to rewind the clock to 2021, and we're going to discuss some things. So under the previous administration and the current administration, there were two different plans. And I have briefly stated in the past that my husband was a part of the withdrawal under the previous administration limitedly, but was aware of some of the basic things that had been outlined and stipulated in the agreement for withdrawal from Afghanistan. And that stated that the goal was to potentially be gone by May and to slowly pull things out in a systematic manner. And that if the Taliban or ISIS or anybody caused problems, then we would respond and there would be consequences. And that did happen. Then when the current administration entered office, the Biden administration, they announced that their goal was 150 days. Before September 11th, they announced that they wanted to be out by September 11th so they could have everyone out by the 20th anniversary, regardless. Now, there's a big difference between just those two stated goals right there. The first one was systematic and organized and would be extended if necessary, and there would be responses if there was aggression on the part of anyone towards American and American allies and civilians there. And then when the current administration stepped in and said, absolutely regardless of anything, we're going to be out completely. Now, here's the kicker. I was able to get a hold of a report from the Foreign Affairs Committee. I was also able to get a hold of some, and these are all publicly accessible. Anybody can find them. They've already been out there for a while. This report has been out since 2022 from the Foreign Affairs Committee. The emails have been out for a little while, and they are from members of the National Security Council in the White House. So these are White House staffers' emails from this time period, all publicly accessible primary sources that I've been reading through to gather more information. And I want to let you know where I'm getting my stuff so that you understand what's going on here. So when Biden said that he gave his 150 days withdrawal plan, in the Foreign Affairs Committee document, it stated that they waited 115 days before they started it. In fact, the document clearly states this, and let me read it to you. Having wasted 115 days, the National Security Council did not conduct its first senior meeting to discuss the withdrawal until August 14th at 3:30 p.m., just hours before Kabul fell, when evacuation became life or death for Americans, Afghans, and U.S. military personnel. Now, in addition to this, the report goes on further to state that when U.S. citizens entered the country, and I believe this actually might be for other countries as well, they were asked to sign up on an app, and that app would alert them if there was a need of an evacuation and then how to go about doing it. The issue is most people did not always sign up for that app. People were more likely to sign up for that app if the situation was a little more heightened and tense. There was things going on. But if risks were low, people were less likely, or they would sign up for it and it would lapse, or they would leave the country and still be on the system. So it was not accurate. So when the evacuation finally did go in to effect, they were contacting people, many of whom were no longer in country, and they could not contact many who'd never signed up. Now, I understand that there's a certain level of personal accountability for not signing up, but they are still United States citizens and they still needed to be withdrawn from the country. In this documentation, it goes over how many U.S. citizens were most likely in the country at that time. And the numbers they state are that as on August 17th, 2021, at the height of the evacuation effort, senior State Department officials leading the evacuation task force indicated that there were anywhere from 10,000 to 15,000 Americans in Afghanistan, according to their F-77 report. Now, by August 31st, when the president ordered an end to all evacuation operations, the State Department and DoD had evacuated approximately 6,000 American citizens. So, again, that's 4,000 to 9,000 Americans left behind that they knew of. And they claimed that only 150 of those left behind actually wanted to leave the country. And as I have previously reported on this podcast, they were claiming it was like 150 to 200, but they didn't all want to leave the country. They didn't give us accurate information on how many people were still in the country. In addition to this, part of the reason they gave all of the information on these U.S. citizens to the Taliban. So there are anywhere from 4,000 to 9,000 Americans who have been trapped and these are U.S. citizens. These are not green card holders. These are not visa holders. These are U.S. citizens that were left behind in Afghanistan. This report was released in 2020, and I just found it in 2024. I don't remember it being on the news. I don't remember anyone talking about it. I don't remember it even being made a big deal about in Congress and, asking the Pentagon, how are we going to get these people back? Does the State Department have a plan? So that got me a little, as you can tell, it got me a little concerned because that is a whole lot of people left behind. And as far as we know, that very well can and probably does include women and children. And that will factor into this very soon. So then it goes to the emails that I was able to get my hands on. And these were White House emails from individuals on that committee that was previously talked about, the one that didn't start planning for 115 days for an evacuation. Well, on August 16th, they told the United States citizens to continue to shelter in place and not come to the airport. So they told people, don't seek evacuation right now. We can't safely evacuate you. You have U.S. citizens spread out throughout the country, and you told them not to come. Well, there was a reason why. The airport was not secure because the United States had handed over the Bagram military installation and airfield in July. Now, the Bagram airfield is significant for many factors. First of all, it had two runways, two fully functional runways and a taxiway. This would have allowed us to double the amount of people we could have evacuated, more so than we did at the Kabul airport. And it was also a completely secure facility away from civilian centers, and we would have been able to better organize an evacuation process. Second of all, there were prisoners in Taliban and ISIS prisoners being held in Bagram prison that were freed. And then the Taliban just didn't have enough people to keep an eye on them, so they didn't know what happened to them. So we had people who had already attacked the U.S. previously, freed to cause mayhem. We have no secure runway and airport to evacuate people from because the Kabul airport was not a secure facility. It was not designed for a military evacuation or a military grade evacuation. It only had one runway. And then we told the U.S. citizens not to come. Now, this is where I get into more with the emails, and there was a lot to comb through. So bear with me as I go through all of this with you guys. Finally, on August 18th, the State Department said that consular affairs are beginning to send messages to American citizens to register for needed flights and instructions on how to arrive and fill these planes, approximately like 100 people at a time. The problem was they were running into technical issues with transmitting these things as well as security issues. So they knew they weren't even able to reach everyone. So when they claimed that, oh, we got almost everyone out who wanted to be out, except for, like 150 people, which is still a lot of people, mind you, they are saying that knowing very well that that number is not accurate. There is a high likelihood that individuals who wanted to be evacuated were never properly informed on how to be evacuated. And in addition to this, that individuals who were properly informed were not able to travel at that point due to restrictions. The Taliban was restricting movements of population at that point to stop a mass fleeing of their own population from the country. Those restrictions on travel prohibited U.S. citizens from reaching Kabul. All right, so then they go on to further state that, okay, well, the State Department stated that they had made agreements with NATO and with the Taliban, that there has been massive progress in the last 20 years in Afghanistan, specifically in women's education, and they're supposed to maintain certain rights for their citizen and population there. Okay, so they've made these commitments to women's rights, women's education, maintaining all these sorts of things. And there were news articles put out afterwards. There was even an interview by a female reporter of a Taliban leader. And they sent out pictures of, oh, there's still women going to the university. They just have to wear the full coverings of the burqa. They had to be fully covered, but they can still go to the university. This is the situation that it was right after the fall. Now, take into account there's American citizens being left in these conditions with absolutely no help from the United States government to get out. And then we go into the next document I have, and this is an interview between the Deputy National Security Advisor, Jonathan Feiner, and he goes on to say that as the situation continues to deteriorate in recent weeks and months, we sent a message warning of the deterioration, including offering financial assistance for people who might need to get commercial flights out of the country. We communicated again with American citizens today, offering them help offering to help facilitate their exit from Afghanistan, and we are committed to getting that done. Well, okay, this interview was August 18th. He said that for weeks they had been offering assistance to get U.S. citizens out, when we know now from the report that they didn't start making a plan at all until the 14th. So 4 days does not make a week, and it doesn't make weeks. And they said they were completely committing to getting everyone evacuated when they know they left at least 150 minimum of their people that U.S. citizens that they knew wanted to be evacuated in the country. So that's just, I'm sorry, not good enough. And they go on to make other statements. I'm not going to be able to cover everything. I literally read tons and tons and tons of this. So, where are we at now? We don't have any clue because the State Department isn't giving out information that I've been able to find. Maybe it's out there. Maybe it is. Maybe I missed it, like that one report that from 2022 that I just found. But as of right now, I don't know of any plan from the State Department to help rescue 9,000 potential Americans stuck in the country. And you know what? Let's be generous. Let's be completely generous. Maybe it's just 4,000. 4,000 Americans. All right. So you say, okay, we've had 4,000 Americans trapped in Afghanistan. Some of them have been able to be smuggled out by wonderful, wonderful prior service members through organizations like Operation Pineapple Express, which again, I have spoken of before on this channel. Okay, so maybe 100, 1,000 have gotten out. We still probably have thousands in Afghanistan, stuck in Afghanistan. So what conditions are they living in? What's been going on? Well, one thing, the United States government has just admitted that $295 million have gone to the Taliban in the last 3 years. Now you're like, okay, well, if we've got people in that country, maybe it's helping them out. No, not so much. You see, the money that was sent to fraudulent NGOs that were not properly vetted by the United States government. And some of these NGOs have been giving money to, martyrs who killed Americans in the war with America. Yay. So we are, as taxpayers, paying to fund the families of individuals who killed U.S. service members. Okay, then maybe what's the life like for these women and children, U.S. women and children, American citizens who've been trapped in Afghanistan for 3 years? Well, what do you know? The Taliban's been having a hard time keeping control of all those well-educated women. So they passed some new laws last week. Would you like? They're called the Virtue and Vice laws, and that's a summary of the longer name, but that's what they've labeled them. It's 114 pages. In this, women are not allowed to travel on their own. Women are not allowed to be out in public without a male chaperone of their family or their husband. They're not allowed to look at a male who is not their husband or biological family member. And this is going to be important because, they're not allowed to go to school anymore past the 6th grade. Women's education has been completely curtailed, and this has been for over a year, after the 6th grade. Now, there's a new law in these provisions that have been put out, and that is, in the new laws, the Virtue and Vice laws, it states that women are not allowed to see male doctors. Well, if women are not allowed to hold a job, and they're not allowed to go to university to study or receive an education, there are no female doctors. So, all women in Afghanistan have just been denied medical care, including those U.S. citizens who were left behind. I want to put things in perspective a little bit. On September 11th, 2,605 U.S. citizens were killed in a terrorist attack, which was orchestrated by the Taliban, who are now the recognized government of Afghanistan, who are taking away and curtailing women's rights for potentially 4,000 minimum, 9,000 maximum American citizens. Does that make sense to any of you? We went into Afghanistan to put an end to the organization that killed so many U.S. citizens. And in the process, we were able to establish and help them establish their own government with their own country, with female legislators and female journalists and female doctors and a university and women scientists and soccer players. And no, the country wasn't perfect. And yes, it had some issues, but they were getting started. They were getting going, and they had so much more available to them than they ever had previously. And then there was a decision made that regardless of how it happened, in 150 days, we would pull out. And well short of even that 150 days, the decision was made by the current administration, by the Biden administration, to leave thousands of U.S. citizens behind. We lost more U.S. citizens to that withdrawal than we did on September 11th. Now, by her own admission, the current vice president has said that she was the last person in the room with President Biden making these decisions. So I've got some questions. What are you going to do to fix it? Why were they left behind? Why was the evacuation not started sooner? I'm not in a position where I can change history or I can free those U.S. citizens trapped, but I would like to know why they were left behind, and I would like to know what's going to be done to bring them home. That was a lot heavier than I anticipated this week's episode being. Like I said, I was anticipating it being just a current event episode. And as I dug deeper and found more of these resources that I had never seen before, I realized that I had the responsibility of making sure that others who didn't know this information was out there and didn't know what had really happened had the opportunity to hear the facts and figures. With all of that said, I'm a praying person. I can't change policy and I can't rescue those people, but I can pray, and I will be doing what little I can. So, changing gears, I want to let you know a little bit of what's going to be going on with the channel. I'm working on a couple collaboration projects, and I want the help of my listeners on these ones. I'm going to be doing my Profiles on a Veteran series again in November, and I am looking for 4 veterans who would be interested in talking about their military service and experiences and what they have been doing post-military service and different resources they have found that can help veterans. If you or a family member is interested in being involved in this year's Profiles on a Veteran series, please reach out and let me know. Contact information for the podcast is included in the description below. Additionally, I am trying to put together a couple other ones, so look on social media, specifically my X and Facebook accounts. I will be throwing out questions that will be the topics for future podcast episodes, and I want to get feedback from the military community on those topics. So if you want to comment and have your comment as part of an episode, please keep an eye out for those and help participate. It makes this a more well-rounded show. And finally, last but not least, there is a lot of crazy in this world, and we can't fix it all, but we can try to be the good that we want to see in the world. And maybe if we start with ourselves, that good can spread and bless the lives of so many more. With all of that said, I am your host, Sam Wolf, and you have been listening to Life of a Military Wife.